Hey guys, in this beginner episode I'm going to show you how to texture this little guy in Photoshop. It's a pretty simple process. Some things we need to understand. The first is our UVs. When we created the UVs for this character in the previous episode, we created them using multiple tiles, meaning that if I zoom out, you can see there are 10 by 10 tiles in this view, so that we have the first tile here, second tile here, and using the UDIM tile workflow, this first tile is numbered 1001 and the second tile is numbered 1002, and you can change how you see your tiles in your UV editor by clicking on view in the UV editor window, going to grid and opening the options, and by default it's set to 0.1 for the grid lines every, and you can see that for me this is a little too much, so you can set it to 0.5. Hit apply. That's going to give you a center line, and then it's easier to see your tiles here. And our UVs can't go outside the tiles, and that's from the previous episode. Now what we need to do is we need to export these UVs into Photoshop. So the easiest way to do it is select all the objects that you want to export, and then in the UV editor, make sure you can see them. Just click this little button right here, the camera button. This will create a snapshot, and I'm going to save it into source images, Kidrobot UVs. Make sure that before you open your file, you go to File, Set Project, and set your project to the project you're working on, so Kidrobot. After you do that, all of your folders, all your directories will be linked to this project. So if I click the Browse button, it's going to take me to the source images folder. It can take you to images as well. I want to put in source images, and I'm going to call it Kidrobot UVs, which is, where did I put that? Here. So you give it the name right here, like this, .png, click Save, and then for the resolution size, this should be based on the textures, the size you want to create. So if you want to do a 1K texture, that's 1024, 2K is 2048, and then 4K is 4096. You can always take the resolution down later, but just to be safe, I'm going to make 4K texture for this, and then I can reduce the resolution if it's too high res. So the image format, I'm going to set the PNG, set the 496 for our textures, and in Maya or in any 3D application, your textures should be square. So 496 by 496. Lock aspect ratio, anti-alias lines, and then right here under the tiling, you tell it how you want to export the tiles. So by default this will be set 1 to 1, so it's going to export one tile only, the first one, but U is horizontal, V is vertical, so I'm going to put 2 because I have 2 horizontal tiles here, 1, 2, so I'm going to export both tiles and hit apply. I already have UVs there, so it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite. Click yes. So then in Photoshop, we're going to open up the UVs that it exported, and you can see Maya exported UV1 and UV2 right here. So I'm going to open both of them like this, and it's hard to see anything right now because the lines are just too thin. So I'm going to click here, this button, which will just make a new layer. Drag it down, and I'm going to fill it with just a gray, so some neutral gray color. And then for the lines, for me to see them easier, I like to fill them with green. It pops out, so you just select layer 1, click this button, this will lock the transparency, and then select the green color, and then just inside here press Alt Delete. That's going to fill, and you can see now we see the UVs here. Then if we go back into Maya, this is what we're looking at. If you turn this button on, this lock button, it's gonna keep your windows from snapping together. It's pretty useful, otherwise it's gonna get a little confusing. So the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out where the face is. So if I select this edge loop here, I can see that this is the face, right? There's other ways to do it. We can actually select some faces and try and figure out in Photoshop where those faces are that we can paint on, or you can create like a little base texture inside of Maya to help you texture in Photoshop. So let's do that. So I'm going to select the head here. I'm going to hold spacebar and go into texturing, and right here to the 3D paint tool, open the options for it. It's going to open up the 3D paint tool options here, and the head selected here, and this is our brush. And now what's happening right now is that the brush, you can't paint on the head because we're going to have a texture assigned to it. So we just need to go down here to the bottom and click assign texture. But let's just look at some of the settings here. Okay, this is all fine. And click assign texture. It's going to ask for a resolution. You can do the same resolution as we had, 4096. And the format, I'm going to click PNG, so it keeps it all the same. Click assign. Okay, now you can see we can actually paint. Let's scroll down to stroke reflection, and we can reflect over the x-axis. Now the hotkeys here are B for brush size, like this, and now we can paint. So the color right here, that's the color we're going to paint with, and that's our brush. And all I want to do is basically kind of block out the kind of texture I want to paint. So I actually want to paint this kind of like window face, like this. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a guide for when I'm going to project. So this is the snout, and I want to do, think like big anime eyes like this, maybe something like that. Let's see. That should be interesting. Okay, down here click save texture just to make sure it's saved, and you can press W to exit the tool. Then back in Photoshop we can click file, open, and if we go into 3D paint texture, create a folder here, 3D paint texture, open that up, and there's the face. So just click open. There it is. I can Control A, Control C, back into here. I'm going to select this layer here, this the base layer, and paste, and this is where the face is. So now I can use this as a guide to make my texture. So what I want to do is I want to make a like a nice clean shape here. So I'm going to use the pen tool, and the way you use the pen tool is you just click and drag, and I hit spacebar to make a straight line across, and then you can do this, click and drag. You don't have to hold space anymore. And we can change these tangents afterwards, like that. I'm gonna close in the middle because I'm gonna go all the way through. You can be exact if you want, but I don't need to. I don't think it's necessary to be perfect. Plus, a little bit of imperfection actually makes things look better. Like that. And then if you click and hold here, you can go to the convert point tool, and this tool lets you edit the tangents. So if you click with the tool, you can break the tangent. If you want to keep the tangent, hold Control, and then you can keep the tangent while adjusting the curve. If you click in the middle and move, you can adjust where the position is, and then do that. Make sure you click, keep holding Control so you don't break the tangent. And what I mean by breaking the tangent is you can do this and you make a sharp point there. So I don't want that sharp point. So now in the paths palette here, you can right click on here and click, actually I think if you double click and then you can name it. So I'll call this face, click OK. So it's going to save this path. Because when it's a work path, it says like a work path. That means that it's not saved, and any new path you make will just replace it. But if you double click it, you can then give it a name, and any new path will create an extra layer for that path. Okay, so that's good. Okay. Now I'm going to use the pen tool again. I'm going to deselect it and then recreate the path. And you'll see what's going to happen. This. Okay, so see it made a new work path. I can double click and call this, I don't know, snout. I don't know if that's how you spell snout, but it's okay. Alright, so what can we do with this? Well, if I go in here, I can hold Control, and when I mouse over the face part, I can left click it. It's going to make a selection. So then in this layer, I can fill this with a color. So let's say I want the outside to be, I don't know, let's make it this purple. So I'm gonna go to select, inverse, and then I made a new layer. Alt delete will fill it like that. You can hide that. You can see the shape that we have here. Come back in here. I'm gonna hold Control and select the snout here. Go into layers here. I'm gonna click on the bottom layer that's hidden. Click to make a layer beneath the purple layer, and then I'm gonna use the gradient tool. So click the gradient tool here. I'm gonna make this selection where you can see the dots. The background is see the checkerboard, means the color that we select will be solid, and then the second color will be transparent. So I'm gonna select this pink. What I want to do is just make like a little pink gradient here, like that. And I want to add so Control D will clear your selection. I'm gonna just fill this with white. We hide this, that's what we made. And I want to blur this line so it's not so sharp. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, or Gaussian blur, I'm not sure. Like that. And then make a new layer. I'm going to bring back this. I want to see where the eyes are, or where I plan to make the eyes. Go to path, double click, it says eye, like that. And then we need to make another one. Actually, let me see, can I duplicate it? Did. Okay. So I want to create an offset line. I need to copy this path. So I'm holding Control Shift to select it. Control X. Let's make a new mask. Click this button. There we go. So that's that one. That's this one. So what I can do now is Control click this one, and then Control Alt click this one, and that's going to take away. Now in here, just gonna hide this. I can come in here and select black and do a fill. Lashes, so control click those. I'm gonna make a new layer. Control delete, fill that. So you can see what that looks like. And then let's make a big ol' pupil and iris. So I'm gonna use just a elliptical tool. This layer is the outside here, so I can use the magic wand tool and just make sure contiguous is on and click inside here. It's going to select just inside. It's not perfect though, but we can go to select, modify, and click expand, and expand by, I don't know, 5 pixels. So that's going to expand the selection, and then I can make a layer under the whole eyeball, a new layer here. Select pink or whatever this color is, and use the gradient tool again, and then just go from the outside like this. Maybe just a little less, like that, and maybe from this side too, just like that. I want to make a new layer under this purple layer, like this. I'm going to make it pink. Control D to get rid of the selection. Oops. Make it, fill it so it's pink. So basically this layer is purple, this layer is pink, but then this pink layer, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And that's going to, see, it's going to blur the edges of that. So you will see this little pink kind of coming through. I think that's going to add like a nice little thing here. And I can also then select this layer again. Some control clicking. You can see the little dotted lines. Then select inverse selection. And then I'm going to make a new layer, and this one fill with white, like this, and then filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and add like a little highlight edge here, like that, and maybe reduce the opacity a little bit. And then what you can also do is you can basically make this layer use this mask, the mask of the layer below on top of it. So if you hold Alt, and you can see how there's like a little arrow down appears when you mouse over between the two layers. You click that, and what it does is that little blurred edge will only appear on this layer, and it will be cut out of the alpha. Okay, so now we need to find everything that constructs the eyeball, which is that. So select all the layers, and then click this, and select, when you click this button here, a bunch of menus will pop up. You can't really see it, it's outside, but click new group. Oops, sorry. You want to click new group from layers, and then call it. So this will be I_RT. So now this whole eyeball is inside this group. I can then right click on this group and click duplicate group and call it ILF. Click OK. And then I can go to edit, transform, and flip horizontal. Flip it horizontally, and if we bring back our UV grid, I can slide it over and kind of try and match on this side, like that. Hide that. Okay, I think we're good. So let's save this and see what it looks like. So now we need to save it, but first I want to save it as a Photoshop file so I have all of my layers. So I'm going to save it in source images as kid, robot, face, and I'm going to, when you are UVing with tiles, the first tile is always numbered 1001.psd. The second tile would be 1002. So I'm going to call it that. I'm going to go into, click this button here and click flatten image. And click file, save as. And this one I'm going to save as a PNG for Maya, like this. So it's kid robot face, or we actually don't need the face because this will be kid robot color, like this. Save. So this is the second tile that we created. If I bring this down, fill this with gray just so we can see what's going on. That's the rest of the body. Now what I can do here is select this color. So use the eyedropper, click here, come in here. I'm just gonna make a new layer, fill it, and just save this file, save as. I'm gonna save it as a PNG. Now if I want it to pick up as the second tile in my texture, my shader, I'm gonna select the one that I already made for tile 1, which is 1001. I'm just going to rename this to 1002, like this. Click save. I need to make a mask for the white part without the eyes. So I want actually the inside of the eyes. So let's see. So first I'm going to click here, control click here. That's going to give me this selection. Then select inverse. That's going to give me that. Now I want to take away the eyes. Now how do we do that? It's a little more complicated. So actually I think if we do okay, so I'm going to click here and shift click there. That's going to give me this. And do the same here. I'm going to use the polygon tool, the polygon selection tool. Just click and hold and then go to polygon lasso. Okay, so now we have just the eye selected. Good. So now I can control minus this. So I'm going to go in here, make a new layer, and fill this with black. Make a new layer beneath it and fill that with white. Like that. Basically fill this with black. And save as. PNG. This one we want to fill with white. And this is tile 1. We need to assign the textures to a shader or material. Right here, these backplates from the previous model we don't need, so I'm going to delete. And there's also a layer that's associated with it. I don't need it as well. Click delete layer, just to keep it nice and clean. And now, the easiest way to do this is to open up the Hypershade. So the Hypershade is where you create your materials and work with textures. This is the Hypershade window. Here you have your preview for your material. Here are the materials you have. There's also textures and other things. And then here's where you create your materials. So Maya comes with Arnold, which is free. If your Arnold menu here is not loading, you can go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager, and scroll down towards the bottom and check that the M2A, which is Maya to Arnold plugin, is turned on. and you should be able then to work with the Arnold renderer and create Arnold materials. So to create the Arnold material, we need to create an AI standard surface. So just start typing AIST and you'll see this is it. This is the standard surface material. It's basically a very default material that you can, it's like a one for everything type of material. You can do almost everything with it. So I'm going to select all of the objects, then right click here and click assign material to viewport selection. That's going to assign it. Another way to do it is just drag the material using the middle mouse button onto each object. That's going to assign it as well. So now there are a couple ways to attach our textures. When you have the material selected, you see in the base section here, this is the base color. There's a color that you can click, so see that will make it red. And if you want to assign a texture, you can use this checker box. You click the checker box and then pick file. Another way to do it is to bring in your textures first and then assign them. So I'm going to show you how to do it that way, because that way I think that if you learn to work this way, it's going to make things easier in the future, and it's the node-based workflow. So I'm going to type in file in here because I need a file texture. Click file like this. This right here, this place 2D node, this tells Maya how to place this texture onto UVs. So it's basically saying place it in 0 to 1 space. And this is the file node. This will link this our physical texture inside here. So I'm going to click the folder icon under next to the image name and then select the texture that I made. I'm going to pick the first color texture. Now we named it 1001 and then the second one's 1002. That way Maya can pick them up and link them to our tiles. So click the first one. You can see there it is. Now we need to tell Maya that this is a UDIM style texture. We're using UDIM numbering. So I'm going to click on the UV tiling mode and set it to UDIM. It's going to tell me that I found 2 tiles. I'm going to click generate preview. It's going to just generate preview for both of the tiles. Now what we need to do is we need to connect this file texture to the base color of this material. It's very easy. You go to the out color, you grab this little green dot with the left mouse button and drag it to the base color like this. You can see the connection here is now made, and then in here this turned white. So the reason it's white is because if you press 4 in the viewport, that's your wireframe, 5 is shaded mode, and 6 is to preview the texture. So when you press 6, you'll be able to see the texture. Now we also made a mask, and I want to connect that mask into the roughness. So I'm going to click on the file again. It's already selected. I'm using the left mouse button to move this around. Click the folder icon, select the spec map that we made like this, click OK, and set this also to UDIM and click generate preview. And then what I need to do is I need to connect this file to the roughness. But you can see a roughness only has a number, it doesn't have this color bar. Whenever you see this color bar, that means it's a 3-channel input. Like if I click here, we have HSV, but it's also can be changed to RGB. So there's 3 channels that are going into this channel. But when you only see a number, it means it's only 1 channel. So if we try and connect the out color, you won't be able to connect it to the roughness. You can see it's grayed out because you can't connect 3 channels into 1 channel. But you see this little plus here, we can click it, and that's going to show you the 3 channels. Now when you have a black and white image, a black and white image contains the exact same color in R, G, and B. So if I just click the first channel, which is red, it doesn't matter which one, and I can then connect it to the specular roughness, which is here. And you can see the connections made now. And now in here, can't really see what's going on, but basically what's happening is whatever is black is going to have no roughness, and whatever is white is going to have full roughness. So what's going to happen is it's going to be the black areas are going to be shiny, like you see in this shader ball, and the white areas are going to be not shiny. But I feel like this is too shiny. So what I need to do is I need to add a way to control the colors, basically, because right now the black is too dark. So I'm going to add, you can press tab in here and type in start typing like remap. So I'm going to do remap value. This is going to add a remap value node. So what I can do here is take the red channel and click to input value, and then here for the out value, connect it to the specular roughness. So that's going to replace the connection. So we're going from the R to input value to out value. And if I select this, I can take this button, this little thing here. So basically it's the first input, and drag it up. And you can see in the shader ball, it's getting blurrier. So the lower it is, the shinier it is, then the higher it is, the blurrier it's going to get. So I want the black area to be a little blurry, but not completely. So now we can test the render. We can close this. Our material is done. Now to test it, we need to add some lights, because if I try and render now, nothing's going to happen. So if you press 7, you can see it'll just be black because we don't have anything to light with. So I'm going to press 6. So 4 wireframe, 5 shaded, 6 is with texture, and 7 with lighting. Now we don't have any lights here, so I'm going to create just a basic light. I'm going to create a go to the Arnold menu, lights. I'm going to create a sky dome light. A sky dome light is just basically a big white sphere, and it's going to project light in all directions. And I'm going to go into my render settings, make sure I'm rendering using Arnold renderer. Go down here, set my resolution to HD 720 for testing. Go to Arnold renderer. I'm going to set the AA samples, the camera AA samples, to 4. That's the quality of the render. So at 3 it's okay, it's going to be a little noisy. At 4 it's going to be a little better. That should be it. The other thing is, you see how the ear is very jaggedy? So with Arnold, we can tell Arnold to subdivide our geometry at render time, because if I press 3 to subdivide the geo, it's going to render slower than if I let Arnold do it. So I'm going to make sure everything's selected, and press 1. I'm going to select the head, press Control A. It's going to open up the attribute editor. I'm going to make sure I'm under head shape, open up the Arnold tab, and then I'm going to scroll down to where it says subdivision. Open up subdivision, set the subdivision to Cat Clark, and the head, because it's pretty low res, I'm going to set it to 2. The arms are a little higher res, so I'm going to set them to 1. Oops. And then the body, I'm going to set to 2 as well. Make sure it's 2 and not 12. Close that. Now we can actually look at the render. Now I'm going to press this button here. So in the viewport, you see this button is like a square with a sphere in it. That's your resolution gate. So this is basically the framing of a render. So if I'm in here, that's what I'm going to see in my render. So I'm going to go to Arnold and click Open Arnold Render View. That's going to open up a new window. This is the Arnold Render View window. And all you have to do in here is press spacebar and it'll start rendering. And there it is. There's our render. Now if I orbit in here, it's going to update. Now the lighting is very boring, so what I want to do is I want to kind of make it a little I want to make it pop a little more. So I'm gonna select the sky dome here and Control A to open up the attributes, and right here under color, sky dome light attributes, I'm going to click the checkerbox icon. That's going to take me into this window where I can click the file, and now I can click the folder icon next to image name, and here I downloaded the Sky HDRI. It's basically an image that is taken with a fisheye lens, that if you wrap it around, it makes a sphere. All you have to do is Google HDRI, and a bunch of HDRI images come up. Just pick the largest one, download it, and then you can add it to the sky dome. Click open. You can see what it looks like. So from inside, it looks like this, but if we look outside, it's just a continuous dome. And what's going to happen in our render is that Arnold's going to use this image to light our character. There we go. So you can see it's lighting it. Now the thing is a little dark, and also I don't want to see the background. It's annoying. So plus I didn't add the background so I can see it. I just want to add lighting to it. So I'm going to select the sky dome here again, go to my attribute window, and then scroll down to visibility and set the camera visibility to 0. It's going to render without it, like this. And the other thing is it's a little dark, so I'm going to come up here to intensity and then increase the intensity of the light. And you can see from the green grass we're getting this really nice highlight from there, and then we get some nice blues from the sky, and that's it. Now if you want to manipulate in the renderer, you can go to File, Window, and turn on 3D manipulation, and now I can hold Alt and orbit inside the render view and see it update. And one thing you'll notice is that if I zoom in on the ear, you can see it's smooth because Arnold is subdividing the ear from within in the renderer, so it's doing it at render time. But if you look at the head, it's still very jaggedy. And we can keep letting it render, and it will be done when this reaches 100. And from there, you can store a snapshot, or you can go to File and save image. If you wanted to do a turntable render, you can use under rendering. There's the render sequence button, and batch render is disabled for built-in Arnold. You would have to purchase a standalone version of Arnold to use batch render, but you can use render sequence, and you can render a sequence, but that's for another tutorial. And I hope you guys like this video. If you do, please hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll be making more videos. I'm going to make all of the project files available on my Patreon page. I'll have links below, so download the project files, and then you should be able to follow along and make changes. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.